a couple of repeats. My dad was a big man, 6'5" and way over 2 bills. Big Al Sack, a high school principal and an Army man. He didn't take crap from anyone. He was the man, larger than life, gregarious, and the center of attention. You could hear his loud voice and the big booming laugh from across any room. And you were going to get his opinion, whether you wanted it or not. The Big Al, as kids knew, could be kind and generous, but make no mistake, he was also the papa. The only child of Leonard and Marie Sackerson, he never played second fiddle to anyone. And he never did understand how brothers and sisters could sometimes fight with one another, presumably because he never had a single dispute with any of his siblings in his entire life. Big Al was old school. He respected his wife and consistently put her before his children. She and he were to be treated with ultimate respect. He came from an era where parents were right because they said so. He sometimes had a pretty tough time with the kids in these respects, and it would have been harder still if we'd have been born a generation later. But it still wouldn't have changed him. He was a fiddler on the roof, a favorite movie of Dad's and one that he readily identified with. Things should be because they have always been. And if the answer wasn't obvious, then someone needed to go talk to the papa. Big Al was a modern-day Tevye, uncomfortable with the fact that the world was constantly changing around him without his permission. He found many hours of comfort watching the History Channel, even though the outcome of World War II had been decided decades ago and the Nazis always lost. Big Al was a provider. He took his work seriously all the time. He was El Jefe. He loved his school like his family, and he tried to support each and every one of its extracurricular activities. Sports, drama, dance, and cultural events, Dad was always there representing his school with pride. As a child, I remember eating lumpia at Filipino potlucks and watching a Mexican hat dance on Cinco de Mayo. When he came to my high school soccer games, he was rooting for me but cheering outwardly for the school he was representing, and sometimes the one I was playing against. His work ethic was undeniable, and if that wasn't enough, one weekend a month and a couple of weeks in the summertime, he went to work at his second job in the Army National Guard to provide for his family and to serve his country. These words were at the core of my father's values: provide and serve. I learned my work ethic from my father, and I strived to be the provider that he was. But it wasn't all work. Big Al took us on vacations. When he was going to school at Aberdeen Proving Grounds in Maryland, he had the opportunity with his wife and children to discover America for 3 months in 1975, and it was awesome. A friend reminded me recently of a story I shared where my father would slam on the brakes and send a few of us flying to the front of the car. He'd look down at us on the floor and say, "It wouldn't happen if you were wearing a seatbelt." It's obvious to almost anyone, and probably everyone here, why kids would fight in a station wagon and a small tent trailer, but Dad never really got it. Big Al assisted with a couple of the baseball teams we played on while Mom was volunteering in the snack bar. Even though his knowledge of sports was extremely limited and his arm was a rag as far back as I can remember, he was there. And he taught me to be there for my kids. My dad, together with Mom, put all 4 of his children through college. I came out with a job and no debt, a start for which I'm grateful to this day. My wife and I are determined to give our children a similar start in life, and I hope we can support Kyle and Paige as well. As well as my parents have supported me. Life is hard. Ignore this fact, and it can crush you. But embrace it, and you will be rewarded. Job, marriage, children, income, expenses, health issues, adversity can all stand in the way of an easy life. You have to work hard, and my dad exemplified hard work. He and my mom were married for more than 53 years. They buried 2 children in addition to their own parents. Dad had strokes, diabetes, and a kidney transplant. My mom was his caregiver for the last years of his life, and they persevered. Through hard work, my father and mother made a good life together, and Dad left a legacy of 8 beautiful grandchildren who loved him as much as he loved them. He was a fighter to the end, and now life must go on without Big Al. Gathered here today, imagine that we are all fiddlers on the roof, trying our best to scratch out a pleasant tune without breaking our necks. It isn't easy. You may ask, why do we stay up on that roof if it's so dangerous? We stay because we desire the closeness of friends and family and the rewards of a life well lived. And how do we keep our balance? My father would have told you how in one word: tradition. Thank you all for coming. My sister-in-law Sally, with a good bit of help from Stan Canaris, has put together a beautiful tribute to our father. It will be shown across the way where we can all share memories of Big Al. For my entire family, thank you so much for being with us here today.